Jumping off of the video by Gamers Nexus about the Alder Lake ILM pressure issues, do you think Intel would benefit from or look into changing the ILM on Z790 boards? First time saying that, it's always a bit tricky. Z790 boards to reduce their already high temps. Intel states they've tested this and saw no issue, but Steve showed a 7-degree drop in temperatures through though minimal change in core-to-core deltas. So,
yeah, so
will they change it?
The contact frame, which is, as luck would have it, with Thermal Grizzly's contact frame is the advertiser for, or the sponsor for, well, not the video, but the sponsor spot of this video. Anyway, moving right along. Yeah, the Gamers Nexus findings were impressive, but to be expected. That's sort of what we expect that to do, and we've done some internal testing and found similar results. So I guess you could say we've validated those findings. Is there a problem? I mean, it works without it. It just works a lot better with it. So Intel saying there isn't a problem, I mean, they're technically right, but also it works a lot better with it.
It's like how good you want it to be.
Yeah, Intel's never going to say like, yeah, we screwed that up massively. It doesn't work very well. We need a redesign. Especially, it's easy for them just to stick with the same design they've got because it technically works. It just doesn't. And it technically works well enough for the vast majority of the product lineup. It's just the really hot, power-hungry 1200K that suffers the most. Yeah. And dropping, anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees off that CPU gets you well away from that thermal threshold. So a redesign would be in order. How difficult that is hard to say because it needs to be a design, a loading mechanism that's quick and easy like what they currently have. So the contact frame isn't as quick and easy. It's still quite quick and quite easy, but to change the CPU, it's a lot more involved. It's not just a latch you lift up, you pop the CPU out, you put another one in, put the latch back down. You've actually got to remove the entire socket loading mechanism, take that off, have the backplate on, put that over the CPU, make sure it's all seated correctly, and then tighten it up in sort of like how you do a tire up on a car, one corner, the other corner, and make sure it's all torqued correctly and stuff like that. So significantly more difficult and tedious than the stock mechanism, despite the fact that for an experienced builder, it's relatively easy. So
I think with this though, let's be honest, the socket that we're talking about is probably only going to be used for the current generation and the next generation.
Well,
so
we'll probably get a worse socket after that.
I think if this was like an AM5 coming out and you know that the socket is going to be used, well, we don't actually, okay, AM4, where we actually don't know. We don't know what's going on with AM5, so I'll use AM4 as the example. Mm-hmm. If we know that it's going to be around for 4 or 5 years, then you wouldn't want the first generation product to have this flaw, and you would think that it would make sense in that circumstance for the next time around the next year, you would modify the design slightly.
Because they have had like high-end desktop designs that do apply pressure differently for the larger CPUs.
Yeah,
so it is possible.
So I'd say if you're in a situation where the socket's going to be used for 4 or 5 years, the first generation someone finds this issue, then for the second generation of motherboards using the same socket, that you would make a small adjustment to correct that. But I think with the Intel situation, you'd probably just wait for the next socket design.
Yep.
Like you'd probably, whatever is coming after LJ1700, that is when you would modify the loading mechanism to make it more sturdy and solid so that pressure is applied more evenly. I think with this generation, it just doesn't really warrant the redesign, especially as you say, most CPUs work fine. Intel's designed the platform and the CPUs to all work together. So they're probably asking for a lot of, even if the enthusiast solutions do work very well, Intel has a different set of criteria for their engineering for things to be the standard that they want it to be.
Yep.
So it's more than just let's change this thing and hope that it works. They have to go through a lot of validation, which again, for a socket that's going to be around for another year at most.
We've seen this stuff with the IHS as well for years. Like, you can de-lit it, apply some liquid metal and get much better results. And it's not something Intel's really addressed because they would tell you their design works as intended.
Yep.
And that's what they're saying with the socket because, well, technically it does, but it could be better.
Yeah, I mean, for one generation of motherboards, I just don't think it makes sense.
Not from Intel's perspective anyway. No. We would like to see it improved, but it's not going to happen.